All right, folks, another video on how to get the most out of Airlines Manager Tycoon. So today I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough on how to think about R&D and where you should be investing your R&D dollars. So we'll talk a little bit about how R&D works. So first off, how do you get R&D dollars? So you're going to start out the game with like a pretty decent amount of R&D dollars, or R dollars as they call it in the game. And that's that little blue beaker with a dollar sign on it at the top. So right now I have 39.9 million R dollars. And you can use these R dollars to sort of spend on enhancements and improvements to the airline that you're running. So for example, you could invest in services which will improve certain attributes for your airline, which will either increase your demand or reduce your costs, or could actually increase your costs depending on what service it is, thereby impacting either the profitability of your airline or how much demand you have on your routes, which will allow you to raise or lower your prices. So let's talk about first how you adjust your R&D budget. Now they walk you through this a little bit in the early game because it's an agenda item, but just in case you forget, the way you actually adjust how much actual dollars you invest in R&D every day is this little, sorry, I'll show you again. When you open up R&D, click on research and development, and it's this first home tab. You have this slider in the top right here, adjust the daily budget. And so when you first start the game, the max you can invest is like $5 million. I've done some research, so now I'm up to being able to do $7.5 million, but you could have it all the way to the right here to max it out, or you could take it all the way down to zero. And the thing to know is like, this is money that's literally going to come out of your airline's operating budget every day. So if you set it high, it's going to reduce your daily cash flow and reduce the amount of cash you have available to buy new planes or invest in new routes or train your staff or whatever. So just know that. So if you are trying to save up cash, then you could always come here and reduce your R&D budget. The other thing to know is this exchange rate. Right now, the exchange rate is $1 equals 1.05 research dollars, and that moves around a little bit. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could like try to time it every day, and check in every single day and see when the ratio is high or when it's low and adjust your budget accordingly. But I always just leave mine maxed out because there's a lot of research to do, and each of these research things can actually pretty significantly improve the profitability of your airline. So it's worth doing. Okay, so what should you research when you're first starting? So if you've seen my other videos, you know that I pretty strongly advocate flying long haul routes, and I also really strongly advocate flying the Airbus A380. And it's fine to lease the A380 when you're first starting the game because you won't have the option to buy it, but you can lease it for $130 million down payment. But ultimately you want to own your A380s because owning is just better over the long run for reasons I explained in other videos. So you want to be able to own it. It allows you to configure your airplane, customize the seating. Also, you can't run cargo on your A380s until you own them. So that's another important reason. And it's just generally better for your structural profit to own the airplanes as opposed to rent them. So with that in mind, I think, if you're just starting the game, the first place you should really start investing your R&D is in the aircraft tab, because you want to be able to get to the point where you can buy A380s as quickly as possible. So click over to aircraft, and the thing to know is like there's these tiers of research categories, and when you first start the game, you're only going to have access to this aircraft number 1 tab. And then to get down here, you're going to need to, I think you need to research at least 2 from the number 1 tier to get out to the number 2 tier. And then again, you have to research 2 from this tier to get to number 3. And the A380 is all the way down here at the bottom left. So you've got to get through like 4 tiers before you even have access to researching the A380. So I would just recommend in the beginning, I think I did the engine one here, which is reducing the wear rate on your engines. That's worth investing in early. It's not too expensive for the first 2 levels. The 3rd level it starts to get pretty expensive. For the next tier, I did this screwdriver and wrench one, which reduces the cost of your breakdowns slightly. That was a relatively inexpensive research. I bought the, let's see, I guess the A330-200, just because it was like the cheapest one on this tier. I didn't really want to care about the other stuff. And then tier 3, I bought the multiple purchase discounts because, again, these were like the cheapest ones in this category or in this tab. When I got down to 4, again, I invested in multiple purchase discount, even though I don't really do multiple purchases as much, but this was just the quickest way to unlock the A380. And then finally you get down to the A380. And this is going to take you like, maybe a couple days to get there because it takes a while. It takes time unless you're accelerating, and then you've got to stock up on research dollars. And I do recommend when you're first starting the game, just like go ahead and max out your R&D budget at $5 million a day because you're just going to need a lot of research dollars in the early game. And by the way, that daily budget is like in game time. So if you're doing $5 million a day in game time and you're playing in Tycoon mode, that means that every 24 hours in real life time here on our Earth, you're actually accumulating $35 million of research dollars. So just something to know. So that's how I recommend starting out. Like you should just research down the aircraft trees to get to the A380 to start. And once you've done that, you really, well, 2 things I would say. I would say you want to definitely invest a little bit in unlocking, access to more capital. So you want to go to this general tab and definitely research the mini bank improvement, which allows you access to more loans, and then probably at least 1 tier of the Kai Stepanie, I guess, this funny little rat-looking bank to boost your ability to access capital as well. And then cargo here, which is this box here, is something you can unlock at a later point. This costs, I think it was like 50 million research to unlock, and really like don't bother unlocking this until 1, you understand the rest of the game, and 2, until you actually own planes to configure with cargo, because it's not that easy to actually make that much money on cargo in the early days of the game. So you want to just wait until you actually own your own A380s or whatever kinds of planes before you start messing around with cargo. So wait for a while on that one. At least wait until you own your first A380, because then you can configure it with a little bit of cargo space. And as a reminder, you cannot configure a leased plane with cargo space, not a leased passenger plane anyway. So that's important to know, something I didn't know when I first researched cargo. These little blue bottles allow you to increase your max R&D budget, so that's why I have the ability to research $7.5 million at a time. You can put a few million, you can put some research into this in an intermediate term, or once you have the A380 researched. And then beyond that, the place you really want to invest money is mainly services. And again, this can be kind of confusing if you're new to the game, because you start clicking on these services and they tell you, oh, it's going to give you lower expenses and more ancillary revenues. Okay, well that's actually kind of self-explanatory, because like, okay, lower costs, that means less money you're spending per flight, and so your profit's going to go up. And ancillary revenues is just like selling stuff on board. So maybe you're charging money to use the bathroom, or you're selling drinks or whatever on board, and it just increases your revenue per flight. But some of the other ones are a little bit harder to understand. So, this one says, well, that one's like charging money for toilets, as I was saying. But this one says, okay, affects expenses and comfort. And so this is putting like luxury bathrooms in your airports. And what it means is your expenses are going to go up, so your daily costs are going to go up, but your comfort is going to go up. Well, what does comfort mean? And So again, if you haven't watched the other videos, I'm just going to show you how to figure out what all these attributes really mean so you can decide where you want to invest your money. So if you go to R&D and then services, this little homepage here has sort of the key to understanding these terms. So these little question marks, these white question mark boxes, are where they actually explain how these attributes work, and that's pretty important. So entertainment, if I click on entertainment, it says entertainment is appreciated during long journeys. So if you're running long haul routes, researching entertainment will increase your demand on those long haul routes. Whereas attractiveness of prices is attractive to customers making short trips. So if short haul routes, if you're running a bunch of short haul routes, you would want to research services that improve your attractiveness of prices. If you're focused mainly on economy and business, then you would want to invest in punctuality. If you're going for more of a high-end service like first class, then I would go for comfort. Similarly, safety is valued by first and business class customers. So, and then expenses just reduces the cost, either increases or reduces the cost of each flight. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And then, as we talked about, ancillary revenues is onboard sales, subsidies, etc. So, as I've said in other videos, I really believe that two things: your best bet for making a profitable airline in this game is to focus on long haul and also economy customers. So, for that reason, I've focused on entertainment, which is long haul, and punctuality, as that is for business and economy customers. And then I've invested quite a bit in sort of reducing expenses and increasing ancillary revenues. So you can figure out what works for you and decide what you want to focus your attention on. But once you have that figured out, then it will help you understand where you want to invest your research and development. And by the way, if you click down this left-hand menu, for example, if I click on onboard services, it'll help you see exactly how much impact you're going to have on each attribute by researching these categories in the R&D menu. For example, food, like you could invest in really cheap food. There's like, sort of Chinese takeout box here on the left would increase your attractiveness of prices. But that's really only good for short haul routes. And so, as you know, we're running long haul routes. So, or at least I'm running long haul routes. So I invested in the nicer meals, which improve your entertainment factor, which is good for long haul. And then, so if we go back to this R&D menu and we go to services, it's just going to help you understand, where you want to put your money, your R dollars. So, let's see, if we click on this nice comfy looking bed here in the bottom right, it says, if we partner with luxury hotels, that's going to increase our expenses, but it's also going to increase comfort. And comfort is for first class and economy, or first and business class customers. So again, this is something you would do if you were trying to run primarily first or business class lines. So anyway, that's a quick intro to how to navigate R&D. Hopefully that's answered some of your questions for people who are just starting out in the game. If you have questions or comments, just put them in the comments below and I'll try to answer your questions when I can.